Hello and welcome to the program. I am Kayode Okikiolu here at Channels Television's global headquarters in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, let's begin with perhaps the biggest political story today, and it has to do with President Muhammadu Buhari. Well, the president is back in the country after a 10-day private visit to the United Kingdom. The presidential jet is said to have touched down at about 6:25 p.m. at Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja earlier today. You might recall that President Buhari departed from Nigeria on April the 25th after an official visit to Borno State, and he promised to be back on May the 5th. So his arrival is expected to put to rest the controversy about whether he'll return as scheduled or not. Well, away from the president's trip now, you will agree with me that it's been a long week in the country, especially for Nigeria's security architecture, with multiple forces threatening the very peace of the nation. And now, to be fair, insecurity did not just begin a few days ago. It's perhaps as old as the Federation itself. And we can go back to the 70s, immediately after the Civil War, when arms were said to have fallen into wrong hands, who then used it to terrorize the people. At that time, armed robbery seemed to be the biggest challenge. And you might recall Decree number 47, 1970, which was the first armed robbery decree in the country. But over 40 years after, the security situation has transformed into this major challenge we have on our hands: kidnapping, banditry, terrorism, farmers' herders clashes, you name it. Well, the government has been criticized heavily for the security lapses in the country, and that's expected because one of the major responsibilities of a government is securing the lives of its people. And tonight on the program, we go beyond just mere talk and rhetorics in a bid to demystify this lingering security situation in the country, especially now that we are counting down to the beginning of President Muhammadu Buhari's second term. But let's briefly take you to the National Assembly and hear from some of the lawmakers right there.
The said attacks on members of my constituency has reached an alarming stage, as the perpetrators of this deadly act continuously kill innocent persons in my constituency and set their home ablaze.
It's like the whole of the north. Yes, in the southeast, southwest, you have kidnapping and everything, but it looks like the whole of the north is taken over by, I won't call them bandits, I won't call them terrorists, I will say the failure of our governance.
These lawmakers are representatives of the Nigerian people, and it's safe to say that's a piece of the people's minds. But let's get some more perspectives tonight on what exactly is the issue with Nigeria's security architecture. At this moment, we have a representative of the government on the program tonight. Mr. Femi Adesina is a media advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari. He joins us from our Abuja studio. And we have joining us from our Abuja studio also the spokesperson of the People's Democratic Party's Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Kasim Afegbua. Also with us is a member of the National Assembly. He's the chairman, House Committee on National Security and Intelligence, Honorable Aminu Jaji. You might say it's a full panel tonight. And let's come to our Lagos studio, where we have with us a security expert, Major General Obi Umahi. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like us to begin with the big story, and this is for Mr. Femi Adesina. Now that President Muhammadu Buhari is back in the country, Mr. Adesina, a lot of people are looking to the president to know what steps he will take in the coming days, especially as it concerns security. So if you can tell us, as it is, what is priority on the president's agenda?
Thank you. Good evening. The way the question came made it seem as if the president will be starting to tackle the security challenge. But I will not agree with that. The security challenge, like you said, is almost as old as Nigeria, but we know that it spikes at some time and then it reduces at some time. We have challenges on our hands in different parts of the country now. The president had been tackling that even before he traveled. So it's going to be a continuation of what he had been doing. Every week, there is the security meeting where the service chiefs and everybody in the security architecture meets with the president, and they look at the problem and the steps being taken to solve them. I believe that the situation will continue until we get to the end of this security challenge.
Mr. Adesina, I'll come back to you briefly. But, you know, you'll agree with me that there's this general impression that we do a lot of talking in Nigeria with little action to back it up. I mean, that's an impression. And people that belong to this school of thought will say, we talk, but there's nothing to show for it. So I'd like to take Mr. Afegbua on this briefly. Mr. Afegbua, as a matter of urgency and actions, what would you like to see, for example, in the headlines tomorrow as to what is being done to handle security head-on in the country?
Well, thank you very much. I think what we have witnessed in the last 4 years, by May 29, to be 4 years since this government came on stream, is a replay of crass incompetence in the way and manner that the security of the country is being handled. Don't forget that the Constitution, 1999 as amended, states categorically that the primary responsibility of any government, particularly a government that prides itself as an anti-corruption government, is the protection of lives and property. And as we speak today, without sounding immodest, you will agree with me that it will be a surprise if tomorrow's headline says no killing, because almost every day you read newspaper, it is one killing too many. And so for me, this government has outlived its relevance. It has failed Nigerians in so many ways. It has reduced lives so cheaply, just like a chicken. You know, so if the government wants to take us serious, if the government value human lives, we expected to be seeing something more practical in the way and manner they engage this process. While the country was burning, when souls were being lost, persons were being killed in Zamfara, in Katsina, the home state of the president, in Daura, kidnappings were being carried out, the president went on a private visit. So the president has no capacity to manage us because he's busy managing himself. Okay. And for a country of taxpayers,
Mr. Afegbua, now you've raised, Mr. Afegbua, a moment, please. You've raised major allegations, and I would like Mr. Femi Adesina to briefly respond to those allegations that you have raised.
No, I'll rather not respond to the allegations. I'll rather discuss the issue we have to discuss, because Kasim Afegbua is talking as if elections were ahead. But the truth is the elections are behind us, and they're behind us for the next 4 years. And the same Kasim Afegbua was in APC till a few months to till a few months to the election. So when did he realize all the things he's saying? So I'd rather not respond to him. I'd rather we discuss what we're discussing.
All right. Okay. So let's move forward.
Elections are ahead. Elections are behind us, and they have lost that election. They have lost it fair and square.
All right. Let's now talk to Honorable Jaji. He's from Zamfara State, and you understand what's happening, especially because Zamfara has come up in the news a lot in recent times. Talk about kidnapping, attacks, banditry, and what have you. So I'd like to ask you, what exactly is happening in Zamfara State?
Well, actually, what is happening in Zamfara State started since 2012. So it's not something that happened during the President Muhammad Buhari regime. It started, and then the way it started as farmer headmen clashes, but due to some reasons, because of maybe the way the people that are on ground, the way they handle the issue, they handle it maybe in a wrong way. So by and large, you know, the things in Zamfara State now as it is, you know, is an issue that it has it is linked to what is happening in Northeast, because it's people from the Northeast that because the way the military and some other security agencies are fighting them, they decide to relocate it to Zamfara State and some other part of the north. So the way people are seeing the issue is is completely maybe different from the way it is. Because the issue of security is something that if you want to talk, you have to talk with substance and then with reasons. So the way people are even talking about, how people are being killed in Zamfara and so many other places in the north, particularly. So is what we call in security operation, what we call force operation management. So in post-operation management, we expect, and including the government and the security, they anticipate something like this to happen after they completely destroy what is happening in the northeast. So that is why they were trying to find a way so that they can at least have another hideout, either from Zamfara or from the north in general.
All right.
So I think this issue is something that even though we had a meeting with the security chiefs last 2 weeks, and then we agree on some certain issues, and then by the way the security chiefs and the way we are going with the current laws that Mr. President Buhari is signed into law, so I think we are having a headway.
Okay.
And
Honorable
Honorable
Jaji, rather, I'd like to hold you for a moment. Let me come to the studio and speak with our security expert, General Umahi. Now, you've listened to the men, and I'm sure you've been following proceedings in the country. Where exactly is the issue? Is it with the security agencies and the heads? Is it the approach? I mean, we're going by this, or is it something we have to just live with for the next couple of years?
Thank you very much. I think in Nigeria, we mix security with politics. And anywhere in the world you mix security with politics, it creates insecurity in itself. Principally because the security agencies that are supposed to be friends to all will acquire enemies to themselves. If they are involved one way or the other in taking sides politically, the opposition will see them as enemies. There is what is called civil-military relations. In civil-military relations, you expect information that will help you execute internal security operations from the general public. And if part of the general public appears to be at enmity with you, rather than help you, they will mislead you.
Right.
So I think, number one, we should take security far from politics.
All right.
When we discuss security, let everybody discuss it with complete love of this nation at heart. Let us discuss it with deep sense of responsibility. So I think the way we are now, we've gotten to a point where we must begin to address security issues as very critical in this nation.
Right.
Because our security situation is so confusing.
How do you mean confusing?
Confusing in such a way that you don't even know what our problems, our insecurity problems are.
Wow.
Number one, you have terrorists. That we know, Boko Haram. But some of these Boko Haram filtrate headsmen.
So as it were, there's some form of overlapping.
There is overlapping. Okay, so when they infiltrate, they acquire license, requiring the government to protect them somehow, whereas they are terrorists. So that's a major confusion. That's a major issue.
Right.
So it becomes a problem for the military or for the security agencies to define how to address such issues.
Right. Now I'd like to hold you for a moment, General Umahi, and go to Mr. Adesina in Abuja. Mr. Adesina, you've listened to General Umahi. You've listened to his analysis. Now, he has said that it's a bit difficult to identify which is which. There's some form of overlapping confusion, as he said. What's the perspective of a government? Is it too much for the government to handle?
Well, let me begin by thanking General Umahi for his analysis. I think he just put his finger on it. Separate politics from the real issues. And I hope my friend Kassim Afegbua also listened, because his initial response was all about politics. And what we are discussing is beyond politics. So, General Umahi, thank you very much. Now, you asked, is it too much for government? No, I wouldn't say so, because this is a government that has capacity. If the government didn't have capacity, it's a different issue. This government has capacity to resolve issues. The issues are multifarious, the issues are complex, the issues are multi-pronged. And as you solve one, another one rears its head and all that. So there are challenges, no doubt about that. There are diverse security challenges: terrorism, insurgency, banditry, farmers' herdsmen clashes, kidnapping, armed robbery. There are multifarious security challenges. But then the question is, does the government have capacity to solve this? I'll say yes.
Okay.
The government has the capacity
now you
to
say
solve
government
all the
has
problems. I will get there.
You say government has capacity and the government will get there. Well, some people might want to disagree with you. And one of them, I'm sure, is Mr. Afegbua, who is right next to you. Mr. Afegbua, he has said that you are probably mixing politics and security. Is that true?
It cannot be true. Let me thank General Umahi. He was in Benin, a great guy, Benin Brigade. You know, it's very interesting that I'm seeing him now. He's looking very well, and he has spoken truth to power. You see, the only people who are mixing politics with security are the APC. I was a member of the APC, like Femi rightly said, but when I discovered that there is a strong leadership inertia, to the extent that the cluelessness and incapacity of the leadership of the country, has begun a process of taking us backwards, I decided to, exit from that party. That is one. Two, if you follow the utterances of APC chieftains before the elections, we had about body bags from APC chieftains. We had the president giving order of bullet for ballots, ball snatching. And we had the chief of army staff saying that he was going to carry out the orders of Mr. President, forgetting that he is the chief of army staff of the entire country and Nigerians in all the political parties. So if there's anybody missing politics with security, it's actually APC. And if you look at the appointments of the IG, the former IG of police was appointed while 21 officers had to retire forcefully to enable the president that Femi Adesina speaks for to appoint former IG Idris. So when you look at that, that is politics. And if you look at the present IG also, his appointment, I'm not sure is the next in line. And in security formations, agencies, and that we have, it is hierarchy by hierarchy, one after the other. But when you have to, retire about 21 persons to give rise to somebody you desire to handle security situations, do not complain when such a person is not giving you the kind of leadership it requires to preside over such security agency. Okay. So it took the president so much time to know that the former IG didn't even pass a night in Benue State when he sent him there to go and address the
Mr. Afegbua, now you have said that your party is not mixing politics with security. You have said that. And I remember as soon as you said that, Mr. Adesina giggled right beside you, which I believe he has a response to that. Mr. Adesina, just briefly before we go on our break.
No, he will not really have a response, but these are issues.
Okay, now before we go on our break, I would like to take a look at some other issues. Politics on one side, but don't let's forget that security is a big deal. I mean, there's reports here and there about killings, kidnappings, and what have you. So that's the major focus. Now, some people have said that funding is a major issue for security, and I would like us to take a look at budget spending over the past 2 years. In fact, let's start from last year. That's the 2018 budget and the 2019 budget. Just briefly, just to give us a perspective of how much we are spending on security in the country. There you have it. Now that's for the 2018 budget. they have the spending for the 2018 budget. But before we take a deep look at this, we'll go on a quick break. Just keep those figures in mind. We'll go on a quick break. And when we return, we'll talk about spending, security, and how these meet away from politics, definitely, in a moment. Stay with us.